Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Mouthful of Marbles. I am your host, Chasey the Goose Goose, and with me is David the Lake Lagus. David, how are you doing today?
Quite well.
Quite well. Interesting. Wasn't expecting that. Anyways, let's get into the video. Today, we are going to be talking about several topics. The racetrack, the Midnight Bay, that's coming up this weekend, along with the standings in both the constructors and the individual racers, and we will be going and taking an in-depth look at each one of them. So let's start off with the track this week, Midnight Bay. David, what are we seeing with this bad boy?
This has to be the most interesting track we've had this season. I know we've said
Looking
that
at
like a
least.
few times, but it looks kind of ridiculous. I mean, we have a tunnel and a bridge. It's 16 laps, which is by far the most laps we've had.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited.
There's just no way of telling how this is going to play out because it looks fairly technical, at least in sectors like 1 and 2, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, there's going to be a lot of speed in sector.
Oh,
They're coming off
yes,
that drop,
yes.
drop on the bridge, and then it's just straight, and then a 90-degree turn straight, 90-degree turn straight. It's I have no idea how
this looks
work.
very exciting. I wonder how much
well for a lot of the marbles we have.
Yeah, I wonder how much jostling's going to go on in the tunnel when you can't. I wonder if it's like
Yeah.
if you can see in the tunnel, or if there's going to be people just straight throwing elbows when they're in there. You know.
Well, the picture that we got at the end of the last GP sort of it doesn't look like we're going to be able to see in there. I think we had something sort of similar. I think it was on the O Raceway right before the sand section. There was a little turn where we couldn't see what was going on. We had a few overtakes in there. We didn't really see what happened.
I mean, obviously, there's been times where like the track has kind of covered a specific spot.
Right.
I think it was on the Hive. There was some spots that were a little difficult to see in that little chicane right before the Hive actually happened.
Right, yeah.
So it looks like a very interesting track. I'm looking forward to seeing how the marbles qualify. It looks like there's going to be a lot of jostling in the first couple of sectors, but we might actually get to the point where some marbles just kind of like take it away because of that sector 3. Whoever's in the lead or in the top 3, they might kind of be like last race where they just kind of take over. I wonder where the pit lane is going to be. I'm assuming it's on after turn 14, in between 14 and 15. So that I'm sure that'll take into account, but it just seems hard to believe that anybody would take that unless they're getting super bumped. But it looks to me like we might have a little bit of a gap in the racers at the beginning, or towards the middle.
Quite as narrow as the Razway, but
Yeah.
at the same, there are, I don't know, those first 2 sectors could really mess everything up for the faster marbles, for the marbles that rely on speed.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
It's fairly technical.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the faster marbles, let's go into individual races right before we go into the constructors. So your boy Smoggy took it home last week.
That's right.
Absolutely fantastic for you and everybody in the Hazers organization. But let's look at who can take over. We have Snowy and Prim, right? Are our closest two, and then there's really no contest. But break it down for me real quick.
Right. So Smoggy has a 9-point lead over Orangin, but Orangin obviously cannot catch him. Orangin's already raced his maximum races,
Right.
same as Smoggy. So the only marbles that have the 2 marbles that have the best shot are Snowy and Prim, 15 points behind. Meaning, and Snowy actually has a better shot than Prim because Snowy already has a gold medal this season. So if Snowy just needs to get bronze and he'll win the individual. That's impressive. But if Snowy gets bronze, he'll win the individual standings because he'll tie in gold medals with Smoggy 1-1, and he'll have a lead in bronzes 2-1. So that's the tiebreaker. But Prim would need to get silver or better to secure the championship since he loses the gold medal tiebreaker with Smoggy. Now there's also a few long shot marbles, right? There's Hazy, Speedy, Starry. They would all need to win, and they'd need Snowy and Prim to finish bronze or below, basically. And then Yellup would need all of those things to happen, and then win and get fastest lap to win. So those are the only marbles. I've just listed all the marbles that have any shot. Snowy clearly has the best chance, Prim second best, and then the other ones need a lot to happen for it to go in their favor.
Yeah, I understand that those guys have the best shot technically, or at least Snowy is technically better. But when it comes to racing ability, I think Prim has the better chance, more consistent in his positioning, with the 4th, the 2nd, and then the 4th again. Snowy's kind of been, well, not all over, but a 3rd in the first Grand Prix, which is good, but then 9th, and then obviously 1st 2 races ago. Right. So I think in racing consistency, Prim seems to have the best shot. especially since his pole or his qualifying positioning is one of the better ones in the league these days. So I don't know. It should be very interesting to see how or which one of them kind of gets the better spot. If one of them qualifies in like second, then they have a very good chance of at least winning, if not getting second place. And you said Prim has to get first or second, right?
Yes.
And then Snowy has to get third or better in order to win. It's entirely possible that both of those things happen. Then what happens? Then we're all out of whack.
Well, no, I mean it's easy to figure that out because they're tied in points right now. So whichever one at that point, if they're both doing better than Smoggy, it's just whichever one of them does better.
Oh yeah,
Because
you're
they're
right.
tied on points.
Wow, there's three of them tied on points right now. Well, rapidly doesn't really count because he's already raised fours.
Exactly.
Oh, very interesting stuff.
Very interesting indeed. Now moving on to the constructors.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because the individuals is very complicated. The constructors is a little simpler just because there's only 4 teams that can possibly do it, and really only 3 teams that can possibly win. Team Galactic needs a lot.
A miracle.
to win.
It would be like the movie Miracle, which was a real event.
They literally need. They need to win, get fastest lap. The hazers need to be out of the points entirely. The speeders would have to not be on the podium. Yeah, that it would take a lot.
Yeah.
So the hazers currently have what a 14-point lead over the Savage speeders. Mm-hmm. So all they need to do is get a 4th place win, or a 4th place. The speeders could get 1st place, and the hazers could get 4th place, and the hazers would still win as long as the speeders don't have fastest lap. So the hazers to guarantee 1st need to get at least 3rd.
Yeah.
But if they get 4th, they almost certainly win. It's the only way anyone can beat them if they get 4th is the speeders win and get fastest lap.
Mm-hmm.
If the hazers get 5th or at least 7th, the speeders no rangers can't. There's a lot of complicated things happening here. Basically, all you need to know is Blind Scout Network did a statistical analysis here. At least that's what I'm going to call it. He did the math, the monster math, and determined that currently the hazers have an 85.9% chance to win Marbula 1. Mm-hmm. Savage Speeders 10.6, and the O-Rangers 3.36. Team Galactic, barely worth talking about at 0.15, especially since we know Team Galactic has just fallen apart over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think it really is going to come down to the qualifying, which I guess is on Saturday, being today Thursday. I was going to say tomorrow, but as we see here with these statistics, the where you finish as opposed to where you start and which laps and all of that. If you're starting in the top 3 and you're finishing top 3 percentages and stuff like that. So I think for these racers, it's really important as to where they qualify. I don't think we had enough technically enough data a couple of weeks ago to understand what exactly the qualifying means. But it seems that the more that we've gone along here, the better chance you have if you're qualifying at the front, which makes sense. But now the data is showing that. I mean, if you're in the top 10 after the first 2 laps, you're 100% guaranteed to get in the top 10, which is a big deal. And 90% in the top 5, which is incredible. Honestly, you would think there would be a little more turnover, but it seems like these marbles are consistently racing at the same pace almost every single time, especially depending on their qualifying.
And if we look at qualifying, like just team-based qualifying, we can see here that the hazers are far and away the best team qualifiers this season. I mean, there's not the second best team is Mellow Yellow, with a full position behind them.
Yeah, and they clearly have. Yeah, they clearly have issues. They're the outliers of these other statistics. It seems, because all the other teams seem pretty consistent. Although Midnight Wisps, they're not horrible, and Momo's not horrible. Although Momo had the help from Mimo getting pole position last week, so that's gonna kind of mess up with the stats. But very interesting stuff this week. I'm really looking forward to qualifying and seeing how these marbles race. And because we only know as much as we know until then. But yeah, all this stuff broken down very nicely. It's really good stuff. Well, anyways, guys.
Do you have any predictions?
I think for predictions wise for qualifying, obviously I think that those top 3 marbles that we're looking for, whether it be Hazy, Snowy, Prim. I think Prim's been consistently qualifying well. If Snowy's in the middle of the pack, I think that the last three turns for them are going to be excellent for Snowy. And then obviously you have to think that the Savage Speeders, it's Speedy, right? Yeah, that Speedy's going to do well. So I'm thinking that I'm assuming that Snowy, Prim, and Speedy are going to be in the and Hazy are all going to be in the top five. Whichever order that is in, I'm not entirely sure. But I think I think Snowy's actually gonna, or yeah, I think Snowy's gonna have the best qualifying out of all of those, and then Prim's gonna be close behind. So maybe Snowy 1, Prim 2, and then Hazy and Speedy 3 and 4.
That's a very interesting prediction there.
Well, I mean, what else do you think? What do you think is gonna happen? Do you think it's gonna get much better than that? Like,
Well, all I'm saying is you never know. There could be a Mimo this week. There could be someone to completely destroy these sorts of ideas where we're just,
true.
we have a set of 5 marbles that we know that have done well all season. But with a track like this, it's a strange track, just like we had last week. We have no idea how it could race. Mimo could, someone like Mimo could come out of nowhere and take pole position and mess everyone up.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I guess that's more of what I hope for, because I want the racers that have the best chance to have the most competitive game. So I want them to be in the top, like fighting for the positions for the best storylines. Obviously, anybody could come, so that's basically more of what I want. Obviously, we won't know predictions or until we see qualifying, because we just don't know how the track is going to run yet. Maybe next year we'll be able to give better predictions based on marbles and all that if we race on the same tracks. But that's what I'm hoping for. It's not necessarily going to happen, but you're right. I mean, it's anybody's ball game at this point. There's still a lot of racers that can come out of nowhere and shock us like Mimo did last week, and we'll have to just hopefully I can wait for Saturday and see how the teams are going to race.
I think the number one marble we're forgetting about right now is Starry from Team Galactic, because he's been the better Team Galactic marble. He could really turn their season around a bit, get them back into a podium finish.
Yeah, I mean, he already has a victory this year, so it's entirely possible that he brings it back in the end. It's a good pull. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. We're growing at an exponential rate. It's actually quite fantastic. Really loving the comments, and we are going comical comments, and we're planning on doing a lot of the more like topical stuff when all the races are done. So like next week we're going to have a lot of like in-depth discussion. Formula E is coming up like next week or 2 weeks from now, which is very exciting. Going to be a couple of races in that as well. So we'll be here, and we'll give you all the marble discussions to talk about, even when the races are done. We'll see you after qualifying tomorrow. This has been Mouthful of Marbles, and we'll see you next time.